This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. I'm Joe Pardavila, and I'm joined today by Julia Putzeys, the founder of Trash Panda, a fast-growing app that flags harmful ingredients in food with a simple barcode scan. Drawing on her background as a nutritional therapy practitioner, Julia recognized a market gap. Consumers obsessed over calories, but lacked tools to judge food quality. She turned that insight into a product, built a team, and scaled Trash Panda into a community of engaged users. Julia's going to walk us through how she went from idea to launch, the key decisions behind building the app, and what she's learned about leading a mission-driven tech company. Julia, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I know there's a lot of apps out there. Many are just built to suck up our attention, but there are others that actually help people like Calm or Headspace. So how did you come up with an app that could make the world a better place?
Yeah, so my career has been in software development since I graduated from college. I fell in a little bit. I was working at the NFL at the time. They have like a rotational program for people straight out of college. So I was working at the NFL. I ended up doing product management for the NFL app and got my career started there. I loved how technology was always changing, and that was really interesting to me. So I was really excited about working in mobile apps and on software products. Went to a couple startups after that, and ultimately just had a passion in my own life for health and wellness. And I made a friend when we moved to San Diego that worked in the food space and a healthy food product. And I started learning from her just how much I didn't know about what's healthy and what's not. I thought I was a pretty healthy person. I played Division I sports in college, and I grew up with a healthy family, and we cooked all of our meals at home. But we were cooking together one day, and she pulled canola oil out of my cabinet, and she was like, "Julia, what is this doing in your cabinet?" She's like, "You need to get rid of this." And my reaction was, "What are you talking about? This is heart healthy, right? Like I've kind of grown up on this. I didn't know that this was an issue." So as I started digging into it and learning more about the foods that are truly healthy and a lot of the ingredients that exist in our food today, I decided that I was going to get certified as a nutritionist just on the side of my day job in product management and software development because I just wanted to learn. I wanted to educate myself. And I figured, you know what, if the best thing that comes out of this is me knowing more from my family how to eat healthy, then that's a great outcome. So I did this year-long program in nutrition and educated myself about it. And because I kind of had this background in software development, I was able to put the two together and think about, okay, if I didn't know this about what's healthy at the grocery store, there's probably a lot of other people that also don't realize this as well. And wouldn't it be cool if I could just create an app that would allow people to understand the ingredients in their food without having to go study to become a nutritionist? Can't they just, read the package and understand it and buy the healthier option? So I had always built apps in kind of the sports space and, entertainment area, but I was really excited about building something that mattered deeply to me. And like you were saying, can help make the world a better place, help people eat healthier, feel better. I mean, our country is kind of in a crisis right now when it comes to people's health. And I think we're solving it in all the wrong ways a lot of the time, just kind of tacking on a Band-Aid to the problem versus looking at the root cause of why are we not feeling well? What is the issue with the chronic disease? And where is that coming from? And I think a lot of it stems from our diet and what we're eating. So I love getting to work on this app now and do something that I'm passionate about and hopefully make the world a better place.
That's so cool. And so I'm curious because, I've always been a believer in timing is everything. And I know it's sort of a cliche, but like I often say, like Mark Zuckerberg, if he was born 10 years earlier, would not have come up with Facebook. If Steve Jobs was born in the 1930s, he probably wouldn't have created Apple. And so this idea of timing with you, with you have this app background, and then you find this passion for nutrition. It all comes together. Like, do you ever try to like imagine like especially during your early app days? Could I have done a nutrition app when I was in my early 20s? Do you ever think about like the sort of like the magic of timing?
Yeah, it's true. And I think we were kind of early to this trend of understanding that there was this shift happening where people were starting to pay less attention to the nutrition facts, like the calories and the fat. And, when I was growing up, it was all about in the 90s, it was all about, fat free and sugar free and, butter is bad. Eat, I can't believe it's not butter, right? Or like sugar free snack roll cookies. And I was starting to see, along with a lot of other people, that trend was dying out, and it was less about like the 100-calorie snack packs, and it was more about just eat real food, right? Eat real food and real ingredients that your body can recognize. So I do think that like kind of recognizing that in that time and creating a tool for that was the right time for it. And since we launched Trash Panda in 2021, we've definitely seen a lot of other food scanner apps come onto the market. And now you see everything with like the Maha movement and everything going on there, like how much it's come to the forefront of, general knowledge that it wasn't there 5 years ago, but it's kind of happened over those 5 years.
It's funny, benefit of hindsight, how when you look back at those like sort of trends that happen, I mean, you could go back really to the 80s where you think about like when something is non-blank,
Hmm.
whether it's no sugar, no fat, they're substituting it for something that's probably worse, and we
Right.
don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And like you said, we've got kind of shifted away from that where we're going back to natural foods and stuff like that. But even the natural food section can be sort of a opaque place because yes, a fruit sure on the surface looks like a good idea, but is it a non-GMO fruit? Is it organic? So then you get into the weeds about that. So even sometimes like us simplifying it to like eat natural foods, you're like, yeah, but it's like Columbo. Just one more thing about that. How does your app help with that? Because I think on the surface, like if you're walking around through a supermarket, oh, I don't need Trash Panda to tell me if this apple's good for me. But then all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait a minute, that apple was probably swimming in pesticides and other chemicals. So tell me about how we navigate that. Now that we've grown to be advanced, we are the best versions of ourselves when it comes to being aware of nutrition. But now there's this added layer of like, sometimes even the healthy stuff is not healthy.
Yeah, that's true. And it's really frustrating for consumers, honestly, especially if you're someone who's trying to eat healthier and you want to do better. So you're going and you're buying things that say that they're healthy, but then you find out later that they're not. And then you just want to give up. You're like, well, I just can't eat anything at this point, right? Like I give up. There's nothing good for me. And so I understand that frustration and I hear that from a lot of people because it's hard and it shouldn't be that hard. I do think for the most part, eating whole foods, eating an apple is a good choice, right? Like if it's organic, yes, it's better. Try to choose organic over conventional whenever possible so you can avoid those pesticides. But generally speaking, if you're eating a food that doesn't have a, ingredients list on it, it's a whole food, it's a fresh food, you're doing really well. And fruits, vegetables, meat, things like that are always going to be a good option. And yes, choosing organic is better when you're doing that. Trash Panda mostly focuses on those packaged foods and those convenience foods. And there is a difference. Like, I think a lot of people say, oh, then just shop the perimeter of the grocery store, right? Like, don't buy anything in a package. But that's not really reasonable either. And in the world that we live in, like, you do need things that are packaged and that are easy. And, those can also be good options as well. So we kind of try to differentiate between those packaged foods that may be somewhat processed, but generally are made with whole food ingredients, and the packaged foods that are ultra processed foods that have a bunch of additives. They have artificial colors, they have artificial flavors, they have, those sugar alcohols or a bunch of added sugar. And those are the things that you want to avoid. So trying to draw the distinction between, okay, it's packaged, but does it have a simple whole foods ingredient list, or is it have a lot of these, chemical additives and sugars and other things that you are going to want to avoid?
Yeah, it makes me my eyes roll so hard in the back of my head when people say shop on the outer rim of the supermarket. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me I can't eat rice? You're telling me I can't eat like a whole grain cereal or something? It's very comical, and it's almost it's one of those things where it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like not real. Like you're not living in real world if you're telling that to people, because it's like, just not just going on the perimeter of like just getting meats and eggs and fruits and stuff. That's not enough for most people. They need a little more. And obviously, the idea of your app is helpful because variety. Because I think for many people, when they get onto this journey of like eating healthy, after probably one or 2 months, and you probably see this as as learning as being an NTP, is like it gets really boring and tiring eating the same thing over. It's like my wife and I eat eggs almost every day for breakfast. I'm like, Jesus, can we find something else to eat for breakfast besides eggs? And it's not always the same, prepared in the same way, but still, it does get tiring. So the idea of being able to to explore those middle aisles and to break up the monotony of being on the outside, I think that's incredibly important for people to stay on track.
Absolutely. You can buy packaged snacks for your kids. You can buy, pouches that are convenient to feed them. You can buy bread. You can buy, a lot of things in those areas. And packaged isn't necessarily bad. It can still be a good option. And the difference really does lie in the ingredients. You cannot trust the front of the package when you're shopping down those aisles. There's so many options and there's so many things that they say on the front of the package. But you can just go right past that, ignore the front of the package, turn it over and read the ingredients because that's what's going to tell you if you should put it in your cart or not.
Awesome. And part of the pun. So in my old radio days, we used to have this saying "garbage in, garbage out," which
Mm.
basically meant if you recorded something poorly, it's going to come out poorly on the end. There's no amount of post production magic is going to fix it. And I use that analogy a bunch when I talk about like AI and LLMs. It's like yes, AI is obviously the next step of evolution in technology, but like, what are we feeding these LLMs? So I'm tying that into Trash Panda. What are you feeding Trash Panda? Again, pardon the pun, but like, how are you getting that information, making sure it's copacetic and accurate, and having it inside the app?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned AI because we are looking into using AI as a way to help expedite the process of reviewing products that get submitted to the app and approving them because we do want to make sure that it's accurate, but having a human go in and approve every single product is also not very feasible. And we're a small team, so we're doing our best there. But essentially, we use a combination of databases that provide food barcode information and the ingredients and the product images and things like that. So we use the combination of databases to try to get as many products in our database as possible. But there's also a flow in the app. If you scan a product by the barcode and it doesn't come up, you can always take a picture with Trash Panda of the ingredients list, and it'll tell you right away what the flagged ingredients in that product are. A lot of apps you have to like submit a picture of the ingredients and the photo and we'll get back to you in 30 to 90 business days. But that's not helpful if you open the store and you need that information right away. So with Trash Panda, we actually use Google image recognition to parse the list of ingredients on the package and give you the flagged ingredients. And then that data automatically gets submitted to our database so that we can review it and add that product to our database. So in the future, when you scan it with the barcode, it will show up right away. So we use a lot of databases. We have ways for users of the app, if they scan something and we're like, wait, that doesn't really look right to me, they can let us know and we'll get that fixed within usually 48 hours of them submitting that update. And then everything just gets, reviewed and updated as quickly as possible because there's always new products coming into the market and there's, changes to product ingredients that we're seeing come out. So we stay on top of it as best we can with the databases that we have access to, with users using the app, submitting feedback to us. And then hopefully in the future with AI kind of being able to rapidly update products and get them published more quickly.
Awesome, that's great. And just off the top of your head, what are some of those ingredients you kind of dribbled in a couple earlier that are like automatic no-nos that Trash Panda is going to come be like, not for you? What are some of those major sort of players when it comes to things you shouldn't be eating?
Yeah. It's a lot of preservatives. So we've added a lot of chemical preservatives to food these days to try to keep them on the shelf so that they last longer, so that they don't go to waste. And brands can make more money, obviously, if they are able to keep those foods at the store longer. So we flag any of those preservatives and additives that get added to food that aren't a food ingredient. If you look at the ingredient list, you see things like BHA, BHT. you can't go find BHT somewhere else at the grocery store. Like that's not a food. That's a chemical preservative that's been added. So we flag anything like that. There's a lot of concerning health outcomes that are starting to be linked to these ingredients. So you can read about, why we flag it, what's the health concern. A lot of times it's linked to cancer or other scary things like that. And then we list all of the, research papers that we have pulled this information from. So you have access to all the information. We're all about transparency, right? Ultimately, you see the ingredient, you make the choice about what you want to buy based on that information. So we flag any of those chemical preservatives. We flag things like food dyes. Those are a big one. They've been in the news a lot recently. A lot of companies are starting to remove food dyes from their foods. In Europe, they have to put a warning on foods that contain food dyes that they, this may cause behavioral problems in children and damage to the brain. So basically, food dyes have been eliminated in Europe because these warnings are so scary. Nobody wants to put them on their product. So they're using natural colors, things like turmeric and stuff, to dye foods in Europe already. Those same brands are being sold in the US with artificial dyes. There's really no reason for that, right? Like there's no reason other than marketing to put those ingredients in our food. So we flag all food dyes because they haven't been completely eliminated from the United States food system yet, unfortunately. We also flag all forms of added sugar. There are over 60 different names that sugar can come up as on an ingredient label. Things like fructose, dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, cane sugar. Those are all forms of sugar. And as a society, we eat way too much sugar right now. It is a problem because it's in everything. It's not just in the candy and the cookies and the ice cream. It's also in salad dressing and yogurt and a lot of things that we think are healthy, bread. So we just want people to be aware of all the different forms of added sugar and how much added sugar they're consuming. That's a big one. And then on the flip side, like you said, if they're taking sugar out of it, they're probably replacing it with something that's even worse, which absolutely that's the case with things like artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols that can really disrupt the gut. And they kind of trick your body. Your body thinks it's getting sugar, but it's not. So those aren't good for you either. And we flag anything like that. That's kind of a fake form of added sugar as well. Those are just some examples. We do also flag seed oils. There are some apps that flag seed oils, some apps that do not. Again, we flag them. We show you the research. You can choose, what you decide you want to do with that. In my opinion, the issue with seed oils is not that seed oils are inherently bad for you. Obviously, they're high in omega-6. And we just put them in everything. So because they're cheap to produce and cheap to put in foods, things like canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, we've put them in all of our packaged foods now. So we're just over consuming it, similar to sugar, right? We're getting more than we should be getting. So again, important to be aware in terms of your overall consumption. In my opinion, it's not like you should never touch a seed oil, that they're all bad. It's just you want to be aware because they're in everything and you don't want to be eating as much as the average consumer is eating today.
Yeah, I know it's like sunflower oil is one of the bad ones, and I know people are countering that by using like avocado oil to make stuff, which is a healthier version of oils. And I know there was this YouTuber Bobby Parrish who goes through like Costco's, and I'm sure you're familiar with. He like holds up bags and he shows people the ingredients, and he often talks about how it's a product that may be sweet. Like it's made of fruits, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden he looks on the back and it says added sugar to it, and he'll always say like, "What's the point of adding sugar to a fruit product that's already sweet enough?" So I'm going to ask you, someone who's a professional in this and is trained in this, why? Why do they do that if they could just easily be like, "Hey, this is sweet naturally. There's no need to throw extra junk on it." Is there a reason? I'm sure it has economics to do with it, but inherently, why are they doing that?
I think it's because it's addictive. Sugar is addictive, and your body just naturally wants more sugar because it's a form of energy. And again, we aren't used to having sugar that widely accessible and available. So it's kind of a natural instinct, but it's turned into something that, we really don't need. So I do think that these big food companies put sugar into things because our bodies crave it. And so we want more and it tastes better. And then your taste buds kind of adapt. And then the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want. And then you keep buying that product, right? So then you want to, it's good for them. It's good for their business. It's similar to like artificial flavors and even natural flavors. They add those in there because it makes it like a super strawberry flavor, right? That it's not really a flavor that should be consumed, but it's so heightened that our bodies just react to it. And again, we want more of it. So then it becomes harder and harder for people once they start consuming these foods to go back to just eating a strawberry because they're like, oh, it's bland. It doesn't taste good. You get so
Full
used
sugar on
to,
it.
yeah, like the extra sugar or all the, flavors and things that get added that your taste buds are out of whack and you don't find the good flavor in regular food anymore. But if you can distance yourself from that a little bit, start to cut those foods out, foods will start tasting better again. Like real foods, a real strawberry, you'll start to recognize the taste of that more. So you kind of have to get away from that and break from because they are addicting and they're meant to be that way. And it's not people's fault if they're like, oh, I just can't stop eating these foods. If we're kind of engineered to be that way, unfortunately.
Wow, it's so funny. I mean, without sounding too hyperbolic, but it almost sounds like the food industrial complex is like the tobacco of the 70s of just like finding any way to get you addicted. Some of these products probably need sugar for them to taste good, and I get it.
Mhm.
But the idea that they're adding sugar just because of the addictive element to it makes it sound so nefarious and dark webby and something you'd see in a Reddit, a subreddit. But it's like it's real,
Yeah.
and people need to be aware of that.
Well, and the tobacco companies acquired some of these big food companies and used a lot of those same marketing tactics that they had when the tobacco industry started declining. They acquired a lot of these ultra processed foods and used a lot of those same tactics to get people addicted to them. So you're not off there. And it's not a conspiracy. That is a real thing that happened. Yeah, and it all ties back to profits and wanting to sell more. And that's just the world that we live in. Unfortunately, people aren't making a ton of money off of selling produce, right? It's the marketing surrounding all of these packaged foods and the things that, the branding you can put on the labels and stuff that's where the money is.
Yeah. You mentioned red dyes. Obviously, it's been in the headlines recently, especially when RFK jumped into office there. But I will say, real life example. I know my nephew's 5 years old, and he was going to see a doctor, and the doctor said to my brother, and he was like, "Hey, is he consuming like foods with dyes in it?" And he's a 5-year-old kid, so he's eating candy and stuff like that. And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do me a favor. That next time he comes in here, please don't have him consume any red dye stuff." And I think it was multiple dyes. It wasn't just the red one. And so they listened to the doctor, took away all those little treats and snacks that he was having with that. And my brother saw an immediate change. It wasn't like some sort of like case study where they were just, I mean, it was a literal, like my nephew had no idea this was happening. He just knew that like, oh, he was getting different snacks. And so the change from just removing dyes from his diet was almost instantaneous. And to me, that's the scary part because we all see the headlines and if you're not like hyper aware of stuff like this, like you are, Julia, or just like if you think everything's a conspiracy, you think like, oh boy, I've been eating red dyes my entire life. My mom gave me cereals that had all the dyes in it. I'm just fine. But to see that play out in real life was really shocking to my family to be like, holy cow, this is a real thing. This is not just something that's making news.
It's so true. And I've seen that difference in my kids as well. Obviously, we don't buy those products in our home, but your kids go to birthday parties and they have, birthday cake with dye in it or whatever. And we try to stay balanced so that we're not just totally, terrifying them about foods and labeling them bad. And we'll let them have it here and there. But we absolutely notice a difference when they eat those things. And that's why that's the concern, right? Is they do cause behavioral problems in children. They disrupt the brain. And especially for kids who have issues with ADHD, it can really exacerbate those problems. So it is a real problem. And I do have to say I don't know, there is everything in our world is becoming politicized, right? And there's this side and there's that side. And if you agree with this side, you can't agree with that side. And it becomes very extreme. And the messaging becomes very extreme, which is disappointing because I think that turns a lot of people off to the message that could be helpful. It's really nice to hear that a doctor was recommending that. I think that is an area that things are getting better, where doctors are understanding more of the tie to diet and nutrition and the impacts that they can have on kids' behavior. I think in the past, we've thought a lot about food as like a way to manage weight. So again, it's the calorie in, calories out. As long as you're not eating too much, it's fine. But what we eat impacts so much more than just our weight. It impacts, our mental health. It impacts brain fog and energy and, how we feel and chronic disease in the long run. And I think that that is really important to keep in mind. You said garbage in, garbage out. If you're filling your body with garbage, you're going to feel like garbage, right? These foods are not real foods and they're not going to do anything for you other than, make you feel sluggish, make you, not feel well. So I think that's really important to consider.
And I think a lot of the problems in the nutrition space and food space for years has always been not the message, but the messenger. And I think a perfect example of this is sort of like, we talk about the Maha movement and, we're recording this shortly after the whole Tylenol thing. Like if, again, I don't want this, we don't want this to be political, but like, instead of them saying, hey, there are studies that link Tylenol to autism here are the facts from these studies. Okay. If they just left it at that, most people would make their decision. But instead, you have a president saying, "Don't take Tylenol. Don't do it." Like almost like it's the Nancy Reagan, "Just say no to drugs" in the '80s again. And then all of a sudden, like you mentioned, there's split camps. People, no one trusts anyone else. And all of a sudden, instead of taking in the message, all you're thinking about is like, who do they think they are? And I'm not just saying this is just a political issue. This is going back years in the nutrition space where you've had nutritionists saying, don't eat sugar, don't eat, I'm of age of like, stop eating beef, eat chicken. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So it's always been a problem. Again, it's not the message, it's the way the message is being sent out to people. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. Because everything these days is generated for clickbait, right? So it has to be like a really scary title or a really extreme view in order to get everybody's attention and get them to stop scrolling and read the thing that you're putting out there. It's something that we are really careful about with the information that we put out on Trash Panda. Honestly, I feel like it likely hurts us in a lot of scenarios because we're not, going viral with this really extreme stance, but we just don't want to give that message to people. We want it to be a positive message. We want people to understand that, there are ingredients out there that you do want to be aware of. If you're trying to eat healthier, those things matter, but there are healthier options available. You can take small steps. Like it's not a sexy message, right? It's like, there you can just do the best with what you have and continue to make these improvements. And, we don't try to fit on either side of anything. We just try to, put real information out there, help people make those choices with that information and hopefully simplify it and make it less stressful for them. And that's not always the thing that gets the most attention, unfortunately, but I agree with you. I find that frustrating because then people just don't know really what's true and what's not and who to listen to about anything. It just becomes like, throw up my hands, I give up.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny too because, I mentioned the beef and chicken thing, and it's so funny how that marketing campaign has, like, rippled for decades now because I remember when they started pushing I guess it was the Poultry Association, Frank Purdue, whoever's pulling the strings
Probably.
in the chicken industry, yeah, was saying, "Don't eat beef bad for you, high in fat." Remember, this is the high in fat, cut fats out of your diet time, and then eat chicken, and for whatever reason, that has stuck. I don't know what it is, and it's stuck with me. My wife and I say we eat chicken 5 days out of 7 most times, and I think that's for a lot of people when it comes to protein, they are getting it from that. But if you look at, like, the fat and the amount of protein that you get from beef that's lean, organic, it's just as healthy as chicken, but whatever's happened to our brains, we've all been wired to think beef bad, chicken good, And it is amazing how just like a little marketing has just changed the way people have eaten over the last 20, 30 years.
It's so true. I think that kind of came from some studies that were done around people eating a lot of fast food. And so, like, a lot of burgers and things like that. But the issue likely wasn't the beef. It was, they're eating a burger with a bun made with processed ingredients,
French
all of these,
fries.
all right, French fries. So,
Yes.
like, maybe don't demonize the red meat in this sea of like all these other issues of what this, diet consisted of. So I think, yeah, that's true. I agree. I think, a varied diet of some red meat, some chicken, some fish is like, those are all great options. And really, it's about, again, the quality of where that thing is coming from. So making sure your chicken is antibiotic free and your red meat is grass fed, ideally, and avoiding more of the processed meats. Like, one of the issues with processed meats is the nitrates and the nitrites that get added as a chemical preservative that can cause cancer. So I think that's where a lot of the ultra processed like salamis and deli meats and things like that can be a concern. And maybe that gets tied back to the red meat, mental thing in your head of, oh, we're not supposed to eat those kinds of things. But yeah, I think all meats are great. It's a matter of what's the quality, where did it come from? And, is it good quality meat that's produced in the way that it was meant to be produced?
With your trash panda, I wonder, I think it's good for anybody, but thinking about my vegan and vegetarian friends, it's almost as important for those people, and I hate to say the word "those people," it sounds like derogatory, but, like, the fact that if you look at most vegan and vegetarian options, they are packed with all this garbage that we've been discussing, and so tell me about how it helps those people, how it helps people that are thinking that they're healthy because maybe they've cut out meats for whatever reason, whether it's for health reasons, whether it's for moral reasons, but then the options that they have to eat are worse than if they decided to eat, red meat or chicken.
They are. It's unfortunate. The Impossible Burger is a great example. That is just a chemical concoction of fake food. It's not a real thing. So if you are trying to eat vegan or vegetarian, I would look for things that are made out of whole foods. There are some good options for things like veggie burgers and stuff, but like, don't try to eat the fake version of the thing would be my main takeaway there. Like, don't eat the fake sausage or the fake, burger. Just find options that are made out of whole foods and not trying to replicate something that they're not. You see like fake chicken. I'm like, well, it's not chicken, but what is it? I don't know. I don't even
Yeah.
know what it is. So just eat the chickpeas and the other things that are real.
Julie, I never understood that business model because I get they were probably going after the vegan vegetarian crowd, but, like, I would think most people think who are healthy thinking would look at the package and be like, "What are these ingredients?" So I never understood that. My wife has refused to ever try. Anyway, every once in a while we meet at Starbucks. I'm like, "Hey, do you want to try that sandwich that has the impossible sauce?" She's like, "No. If I'm gonna have one of these crappy, you know, preservative packed, sandwiches that have been sitting on the counter all day, I'm gonna have the real thing." And so it was always funny to me, like who they were catering towards. If you weren't really providing a quote unquote healthy option. You were just providing an option.
Well, I think there's always going to be those trends in health and wellness about what's healthy and what's not. So, meat got demonized and vegan and vegetarian became popular. And you better believe the food industry is ready to swoop right in and sell that consumer something, right? So, if they see vegan and vegetarianism becoming popular, they're going to come right in and say, hey, we've got some products for you. Here's some fake burgers, some fake chicken, some fake whatever, so you can still enjoy the things that you love but, fit your diet and lifestyle. The same thing has happened with milk, which is I got, sucked into this as well. There are plenty of people who shouldn't eat dairy. They have a dairy sensitivity or lactose intolerance, whatever. That is absolutely valid. But if you don't, I don't think drinking oat milk that has 20 ingredients in it, the Oatly oat milk, is better than drinking milk, which is made out of one ingredient. Like,
Right.
it doesn't make sense. But the big food company is always going to be ready to come in and market and sell something based on a trend. So unfortunately, I think that's probably just going to continue with whatever cycles we go through.
That's a great example about the almond milk because I've noticed that about people generally who are drinking those products are quote unquote healthy. They're fit. They seem like they take care of themselves, and then little do they realize that they've got red dye number 7 or whatever in their milk, and you're like, wait a minute, why is that in that? I don't get that. So that's very funny. All right, so let's talk about being a founder of an app as we wrap things up here, because I started the conversation talking about like everyone wants to create the next great app. Everyone wants to be rich by creating this thing that's going to live on people's phones that everyone's attached to and they're addicted to. What's it like the day to day? Because I think we all like can understand the idea of like, I've got this idea for this app and then everyone's going to use it. Tell me about like the idea, executing it, and then making sure that people actually download it and use it. Give me the founder's perspective on all that.
I'll be honest, it is not an easy business to get into. It is not the money maker that a lot of people think that it is. It is expensive to manage and host an app that, thousands of people use. And unfortunately, people, I think, have a mindset around apps that they think they should all be free. So it can be a challenge to position your app and price it, frankly, in a way that works for people. Because people are used to apps being free and just, being a utility. But we do have a lot of costs to run the app, to manage all these databases that we have, to provide the service that we provide to users. So we are monetizing the app through a subscription option. We allow a certain amount of features in the app for free. And then if you want to do unlimited scanning and get access to dietary preferences and some of the customization within the app, we offer that through a membership. So we have that model because we want to be really clear that we are not getting paid by brands to promote products. Everything is 100% transparent. We are 100% independent. So people can trust when we are recommending a product, it is because the ingredients in that product are great. And we will never alter the data for products or the rating for products based on any other influence other than the ingredients that are shown on the package. But yeah, it's a tough model, honestly. Subscription apps are a tough model to monetize. So we're still very much figuring it out and trying to get the word out about the app. And I think, we'll see what happens. I I kind of try to stay grounded in the day to day. It's for me, it's about reaching people, about helping people, about making sure more people have access to a tool that can help them eat healthier and live better. And we'll see what comes out of that. I enjoy the work that I do, so I stay focused on that, and whatever happens in the future happens. But
That's great. That's awesome. And it's funny you mentioned a key component, because I think a lot of people, myself included, expect when they go to an app store and if it doesn't say free, they're going to skip past it. So tell me about this value proposition. I believe it's an annual membership is $39.99
that's
on the
right.
App Store for Trash Panda, which is, I mean, if you break it down, it's not that much. But like
Mhm.
the idea of training people, that when that number comes up of $39.99 on the App Store, there is a bit of sticker shock for most people.
Mhm.
So I mean, you mentioned the perfect example of like the fact like we can't be bought, like Kellogg's is not going to sponsor something and then you're going to say, hey, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes is good for you. So there is that morality play there. But tell us how you can separate from those, because you mentioned there are other food scan products apps out there. When someone says to you, all right, so Julia, I mean, yours sounds great. I love the fact that you don't have to worry about ads to run your business, but like, how is me paying $40 better than getting it for free?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean there are a bunch of apps out there. Most of them have some subscription component, so it just kind of depends on what features of the app they're monetizing versus which ones they're offering for free. Um, but I mean the 39.99, if you think about it, it breaks down to $3 a month basically. And I would be willing to bet that many people are spending more than that on Starbucks every single day, right?
Right.
So it is an interesting, just perspective that we are trying to shift, which is, don't you think that $3 a month investment in your health is worth it relative to, maybe the $7 latte that you're buying every day? But we do try to keep, some apps are fully paid, so you can't use the app at all unless you buy into their membership. Some apps are, lean more toward the free side. I think we try to make sure it's clear that there are free features of the app. So you can scan 5 products a month. You can search for as many products as you want in the app for free. We put out a lot of informational articles and things like that that are all accessible for free in the app, because we do want to offer a free experience. And we also let people know that if you genuinely can't afford $3 a month, but you are trying to eat healthier, let us know and we'll work with you to find something, that fits your budget. But otherwise, it's worth that investment in your health and to use a tool like Trash Panda and to eat healthier and to get access to that. So
That's great. That's good stuff. I feel like Orrin Hatch, remember that old senator was asked Mark Zuckerberg, how does Facebook make money? And then like Zuckerberg deadpan was like, ads. We sell ads. So I'm curious, because you're in this app space. How do these apps that are free, the people we were just talking about, how do they survive? Am I going to be as silly? Is it going to be a silly answer as you just saying ads? I mean, how are these? Is essentially that they're just, those little bars on the bottom that have, like, how are most of these apps monetizing their app?
So I only know of one app in our space that is completely free. And you mentioned Bobby Parrish. It's his app that is free, but he is monetizing off of brands. So he partners with brands. I actually did a video about this on my TikTok account where, like, he partnered with Khloe Kardashian about her latest popcorn that she was putting out. And he got paid to promote that popcorn, even though some of the ingredients in that popcorn were not approved in his app. And that's where, okay, yeah, you can go use that free app, but do you trust it? Do you trust that the information is good information and that you're, not getting the latest sponsorship that he has had to do in order to support that app? So I think that matters to some people. Maybe it doesn't matter to all people, but being able to trust the information and know that it's legitimate, I think, is really important. There's another app that's really big in the space that all of their scanning is free. So I think people think that the app is free, but they do have a subscription option and they are monetizing off of that subscription option to unlock additional features. So I think that's the main breakdown. Pretty much all of them have some subscription offering. One I know that doesn't is monetizing through those brand partnerships, which in my mind is not, I think ultimately that's going to bite them. It's not going to work out.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So if folks want to download the app, I know it's going to, again, super silly question. Tell us, but I have to do it as the host of this podcast. Tell folks how they can download the Trash Panda app, Julia.
For sure. Yeah, you can download the app through the App Store on iOS or Google Play for Android users. And you can find us on trashpandaapp.com or on social media at Trash Panda App.
Awesome. Her name is Julia Putzeys. She's the founder of Trash Panda. Julia, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you'd like to learn more, go to theauthoritycompany.com.